everybody. This is Alex. I'm the co-founder and COO here at Swolverine. It is episode 2 of the Swole Friends podcast, and today we have elite athlete Danielle with us. Danielle is a Swolverine athlete as well as a CrossFit athlete, and we are really excited to chat with her about all things fitness, lifestyle, being a mom, being a wife, taking care of lots of responsibilities and roles. And hopefully by the end of this, you are going to be inspired, ready to hit the gym again and go out into life and crush it. So Danielle, welcome. Super excited to chat with you today.
Thank you. Me too.
How's your morning been so far?
It's been really good. I'm just getting over the flu. So I was able to go back into the gym today and just move and kind of start that whole process back up again. So I feel really good about getting off the couch.
Yeah. It's interesting, like how bad we can get knocked out by something, right?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's tough. So let's get some icebreakers going. So where are you calling in from? Where do you hail from?
I live in Pinehurst, North Carolina right now. My husband is in the military. He's based out of Fort Bragg. So we live about 45 minutes away from base. And yeah, that's where I call home right now.
Cool. Awesome. Do you guys move around quite a bit because of the military, or do you kind of stay where you are for a while?
We are very fortunate to not move around a ton. My husband did all of his training here, and we're fortunate. He signed a 6-year contract, and we're about a year into that right now. So we're probably going to be here about another 5 years.
Awesome. Okay. That's very cool. And I know you have a little, so tell us about your little.
I do. Her name's Reagan. She's turning 3 in November. She is a Spitfire. She is, I wonder where
Mama.
She is so stubborn, but she's got all of this energy and she is just so smart. And I know everybody says that about their child, but seriously, she's so smart and just so friendly. Oh my gosh, we'll go on walks or anything like that. And she's always the one that says, hi. She'll be like waving at somebody like all the way down the road.
Oh my gosh.
She's the sweetest.
That's pretty awesome. And where do you train at? Like, where's your home box?
So right now I'm kind of like bopping around between a lot of places. We have a fully functional garage gym, just no space. So I train over at Southern Pines. Here in Pinehurst, Southern Pines. And then I'll go out to Shoe Fly still once a week. And I train out there right now just once a week. It's about an hour and 7-minute drive to get out there. So it's a little ways away, but I love the community out there and coaching one day a week there too. So
that's awesome. Cool. Yeah. And I know you coach as well with nutrition, right? So you've been doing that for 4 months, or did you do that beforehand?
So I did it on the side for a very long time, probably since like 2017. I've got my nutrition certification and I have my degree in health and exercise science. So just, part of the background. But I started my own business called the Humble Hungry Athlete. It's primarily nutrition coaching, but I also do fitness coaching as well. And I started that business this year around March, I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. And so when you talk about fitness coaching, what type of coaching do you do? Do you do like CrossFit programming? Is it more like one-on-one? Do you have like specific modalities that you kind of address, or?
I love coaching CrossFit athletes. They are my favorite. However, anybody that is motivated to get better is, somebody that I want to work with. Somebody that's excited to work with me as well. I just actually started training somebody one-on-one out of the gym. I do a little bit of virtual coaching. I coach 1 class a week on Fridays with some girls virtually. And I work with some Army athletes to get ready like for the Army Warrior Fitness Test, but primarily CrossFit athletes.
That's awesome. That is very cool. And in case anyone doesn't know or you don't follow Danielle on Instagram, we did go ahead and put her handle in here. Danielle, you are a pretty stacked athlete. Like, I think if someone was going to look at you, they're like, this chick's buff, right? She knows what she's doing. She's a good athlete. And so let's kind of talk a little bit more about physique and kind of you're a mom, right, to someone who's 3, right? And I think somebody who might look at your physique might say like, wow, how do I be like her? Right. So what have been some of the challenges that you've faced after, being pregnant altogether, maintaining your athleticism, pursuing, your health as well as overall just performance and physique? Let's kind of get into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, fortunately, I had a not very traumatizing birth. Just normal birth. It obviously did not feel super great. No epidural or anything. There was no time for it.
Oh my gosh.
But I feel like that has made me a lot stronger in my training, especially. I remember when I was in labor, I was just like counting down the time that they told me that I just had to sit on this exercise ball to have her drop. And I just kind of thought of it as like an AMRAP almost. I know it's kind of crazy, but just the experience with that just made me a lot stronger. I would also say that being a mom, and I know I just told you, I just had the flu. I got it from Reagan. I feel like I'm constantly sick all the time. And I feel like that's been a really big setback for me because training is, also my job. So it kind of takes me out of the game for that. But I have a goal of making it to the CrossFit Games. And no matter how many times, things kind of try to stop me, I still have that goal. So that's always been in the back of my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. As far as let's just dig into adversity, right? So that's it's a tough topic. It's a hard one. I think you're a very resilient woman and you're a very resilient athlete. But for the people who may not know you as either of those, let's kind of give them some history. So where did your fitness journey start?
I've been an athlete since I could remember. When I was younger, I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a firefighter. I didn't want to be a princess like my sister. I wanted to be the first woman to play in the NBA, not the WNBA, but the NBA. So I've always had that athletic drive in me. But I started CrossFit specifically in 2013, I believe. Regionals was my first year that I went individually in 2017. And then from there, OC3 invited me to move out there. They're in Iowa, about 5 hours away from where I lived at the time. I trained with them for the 2018 season. Made it individually that year. However, I had committed team, and they did not tell me at the time that they wanted to have the other girl on the team. So I forfeited my individual spot because I thought that I was going to go team, and that did not happen. I think that year the team got third at the games. So they did really well, and I got better from training with them. 2019, I got pregnant unexpectedly, but it was the biggest blessing. That gave me honestly a ton of fire to come back, because I did go through the 2018 season not being chosen as the main person on the team and being chosen as the alternate. That gave me a lot of fire to come back and say, hey, I was worth putting on that team. Like, I was good enough. So 2020 COVID happened. And then 2021 was the first normal season. The first normal season. And that was a great year. I was married. I was happy. I had a beautiful baby, and I had a great job, and I was just very happy. And I think that made me a very dangerous athlete. I did well, and I placed 9th at the MAC in 2021. And then 2022, we went team, got second at the MAC, and my teammate tested positive for a banned substance. So I feel like I had 2 opportunities to kind of try to achieve my dream and make it to the games, and it wasn't in God's plan, which is still very hard to understand, but I know that there is a reason for it. So I trust in that. I trust in his plan, and I'm just going to continue working and progressing along the way. I feel like a lot of people have similar things that they go through throughout life, right? And it's really about the journey and the person that I've become during this. Because before I started CrossFit, I was just really not in a good place. And now I'm a better person through all of the adversity and everything that I have learned.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. I mean, I think that one of the unique things about you as an athlete is your consistency, regardless of the adversity and regardless of, I think a lot of people look at it as like, these are setbacks, right? Like, oh yeah, knock down, but you're like, hit harder, you're like, stand up taller, what's next? It's not, woe is me. It's like, well, what do I need to refine? Right. And there's a lot to be said for refining things rather than having that like victim mindset where, your circumstance, what happens to you, but more so you step into the position of a reactive position where you're like, a growth mindset and, how much better can I get? And the beautiful thing about CrossFit, I think, especially as an athlete or an elite level athlete, is like you can be an athlete for the rest of your life, right? And that's not something that a lot of sports give people the opportunity to do, especially people who have been active their whole life, right? Or, you get to be an adult and you're not challenged in that competitive sense all the time. Like, I mean, you can be, but you got to find your circle, and the circle is going to be probably pretty small. And, you guys are going to talk a lot of crap to each other and push each other. But, when you don't have that, sometimes walking into a CrossFit box can be that thing that has really been a missing key, right?
Yes, exactly.
And when you are pursuing a higher level, right? And I think this question kind of comes up a lot, and you probably face this in coaching. I faced it with athletes, who are like, yeah, like I want to go to the game someday, but I'm just doing my first open, or I'm just doing, I just got to quarterfinals and I'm stuck at quarterfinals. How do you feel like people can, kind of take some of the lessons from the adversities that you faced to apply to themselves to have that long-term goal, but also have those small and medium-sized goals in between hand?
Absolutely. Well, like I said, it's all about the process and just getting through like every day, really, with that a big picture in mind. A lot of what has helped me is knowing my why and why I want to do this. Yes, it's to compete at the CrossFit Games, but also it's to show my daughter that something I've been working so hard for, I can't just quit. And my dad taught me that too. Like, I can't just quit sports, you have to finish out your season. That's always what he said. And I faced a lot of trials when I was, in high school sports and stuff like that too. And he never let me quit. So just because I'm facing, some adversities, I've, got that mindset where I'm just not going to quit.
Totally. Like for our high school athletes, I don't know if there's any high school athletes out there or team sport athletes, when you get benched or when you get pulled out of the game because you knocked a foul, or like you get pulled out of the game because you don't know why and your coach just decided to do something crazy, and you're sitting there, you don't get to just sit and wallow. You're challenged to be a better teammate. You're challenged to, inspire others and be a leader. Right. And I think that's something too that, you floated back and forth between individual and team athlete, right? And I think you enjoy both of them. Do you enjoy one more than the other, you think?
I loved going team. It was awesome, just for the simple fact that you're training with people that have the same goal and you guys are, trying to accomplish this together. But also, the fact that you want to train with people that are better than you so you can get better. So the fact that I was surrounded by people that, were better than me, like pushed me to my limit and made me better.
Totally.
And also going out into the competition floor by yourself versus with a team, I felt like I had less anxiety going out on the floor versus going out there alone. But I'm a competitor. I love competing. So I enjoy both.
Totally. So let's talk about being surrounded by people, right? And choosing kind of your core crew. Do you believe in that statement that you are who you surround yourself with, and why?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was talking to my girlfriend about it this morning because my daughter, she's been having some rough mornings getting up and ready for school.
Me too. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah. But her energy is really hard. Well, her negative energy in the morning is really hard to kind of like transfer over because I go straight to the gym afterwards. And
Yeah.
it's not like I can just say, okay, Reagan, like somebody else is going to take care of you. I would never do that. So, yeah, I was talking to my girlfriend about that today. And, the fact that I'm very lucky that I am able to choose who I surround myself by. My husband's in the military and he does not get to choose who he surrounds himself by. He doesn't get to choose who his teammates are. And sometimes that can be really hard on him, but he is just trying to spread positivity and stuff like that to his team. And I think that you hear people that are black holes and just suck you in. And that's so easy to do, to just get in this negative mindset. Like, for example, going to the gym, like, oh, this workout sucks. It's going to be 40 minutes. It's so hot outside. You can kind of get into this woe is me attitude. But if you look at it as an opportunity to get better or have fun with friends, I think that makes a huge difference in just how you go about your day and your life.
Even how the workout goes, right? I mean, it's kind of, I remember I was watching an interview with a surfer, like a big wave surfer, this person who rides like 100-foot waves. And they were talking about how, in the midst of it, they're terrified, right? And just follow me on this, but they're terrified and their anxiety and their stress, and they're like, I could die. But then, he goes, and at one point, he goes, when I was a little surfer, he goes, this old man told me just smile, right? And just laugh. And when we can change that perspective or that narrative in our body during a workout, as you're walking out onto the game, competition floor, kind of in life in general, it's kind of like, just laugh a little bit, right? Is a workout really as bad as you're making it? Is it really as hot as you think it is? Like, sometimes it is. And sometimes the humidity is like 90% and you literally feel like I'm going to keel over. But
Yeah.
if you can just kind of like laugh through it and find that positive moment, it doesn't have to be something crazy, and you're not really lying to yourself. You're just saying like, okay, right? And what that does chemically, and I'm sure you can relate to this as far as like your background and like your degree and things like that, is it changes that fight or flight, right? It changes your adrenaline and it changes the way that your body is responding. And so instead of seeing this thing, like in the surfer's case, a big wave as a threat, it's going to demolish me and I'm going to die. Or, you know what I mean? Even walking up to a really large weight that you're going to snatch overhead. And, you're a really good weightlifter. I mean, you can relate to that for sure. If you kind of just like give yourself that little pep talk and smile, right? I mean, try it sometime, right? For our viewers, it's kind of interesting how that changes. And that same perspective can be applied to who we surround ourselves with. Because sometimes that smile has to be lent to us from somebody else. Sometimes that perspective change has to come from somebody else. So pretty important there. Talk to me about being kind of a military wife. I mean, you're a full-time athlete. You're a full-time mom. You don't get a break from that, but you're also a full-time military wife. How do you feel like that's added challenge into what you do, or has it made it easier? Or talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different life. I wasn't expecting what came at us, I guess. He has a lot. He just got to his team, I would say, like at the beginning of this year. So a lot of his training happened in the 2021 season where he was gone. So 2021 season, when I went individual at the MAC, he was gone from the open all the way up until the last chance qualifier. So I was momming it. And at the time I was, working my full-time job at the gym, and then trying to train as well. That's really tough on me is when you marry your partner, you expect him to be there to support you through hard times, and in the military that cannot always be the case. um, so you really have to be strong and independent, and I learned a lot of patience during that time where I was alone, especially with Reagan. Um, and I think I was a better, stronger athlete for it. And well, now, fortunately, we don't have a lot of stuff going on in the world, which is a good thing for me. But my husband and all of his training and stuff that he has going on, like he wants to go do his job. Me selfishly, like I'm glad that he's been home a majority of the year this year. It's been great for our relationship, for our family. We've been able to go to the beach and go on vacations and do things together like a normal family. But it comes with its own challenges, that's for sure. But the military provides a lot of great opportunities for families and more education for my husband and his career, and hopefully will get us set up for the rest of our life.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's always trade-offs, right? And that's kind of the big thing is managing risk and figuring out, well, what do I really want? And digging into that why, that's overlooked, because that why is going to get you through so many of those dark times, right? Those dark days where you feel like, if you bring it back to fitness, you can't go one more rep, but you got to, or you can't, go one more day on your own, but you got to. Yeah, it's a challenge, but I think like you have absolutely risen up to that. But on another kind of token, let's take it back a few years and let's talk about competing at the MAC. So I don't know if anyone out there watched the MAC that year, but Danielle, you came into it kind of as an underdog, kind of as, really the first, I think, opportunity to make a name for yourself as an individual, which you did. Absolutely. Right. And Reagan was even there. I mean, I remember watching at the end of the event, you're holding Reagan out on the floor and the girls are like, not, she's so cute. But the girls there that were competing were big names. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
I mean, you look up to these women in this sport for however long. You watch them at the CrossFit Games, follow them on Instagram and all that stuff. And they are just as much a person as I am. They do the same thing. CrossFit is their job, their passion, and they're very good at it. So stepping out onto that floor with them on the last day was very intimidating, but it was an amazing experience.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Tell me some of the names that we're talking about.
Oh, yep. So Tio was there that year. She didn't have to go back to Australia. Let's see, Amanda Barnhart, Brooke Wells, Christine Colenbrander. She's one of my good friends. Who else? Jessica Griffith, Fee Sagafi, and there was one more other person, but very big names.
Yeah, absolutely. So those big names are the ones we're talking about, just for anyone's reference. So yeah, I mean, you follow them for a while, you look up to them, and then next thing you know, you're sweating next to them on even like not a training camp. We're not talking like a casual, Saturday at some gym you dropped into or were invited to. We're talking like the future of the sport, right? And the future of your sport for that year. And so what was it like to do that? I mean,
like I said, it was intimidating, but also very exciting. I was in that last heat because I earned my spot there. So that gave me a lot of confidence going in. And, everybody was in their zone and ready to compete. So it's not like we're all chatty back there. There's a big difference between the big heats, I guess the last heat technically, and then the first heat as far as the chattiness and friendliness going on in the pack. Not to say that as a bad thing, but you just have to be in the zone and you got to get yourself there in whatever way you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know some of the athletes that I coach, kind of get in their head a little bit about like, oh, well, I'm competing against my best friend. Like I want to beat her, but I don't like want to make her feel bad. And it's like there's such a different mentality when you go in and you're just like, nope, it's me versus me, but it's also I'm gonna beat you and we can be friends afterwards, right? And that's like kind of leaving it at the door. And that's almost kind of the same thing too with team, right? Like obviously you're a team and you're a unit, you want to make each other better, but there's also like this competitive aspect of like, I am going to beat you and you need to catch up and we were going to elevate this together. You know what I mean? Do you feel that way with some of your team training in the past?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, I do. Like I said, we're all competitors, so we all want to win. And it's a good feeling to win, but it's also a great feeling to have somebody beside you wanting the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So for 2023, do you know if you will be going individual or team?
That is the question. I don't know yet.
Okay. Do you feel like when you think about setting goals like that, right? And I think a lot of people can relate to this, let's say the open, it starts in February. Maybe it'll be your first open. Maybe it'll be like your 50th. I don't know. And kind of when you think about setting goals like that, do you give yourself timelines or, I'm going to make a decision by this date? Or is it kind of influenced by some of the other aspects in the sport or what you have access to or the teams or invites or things like that?
I think it's definitely, well, at this point in the game with team, there are so many teams that are coming together like our team did. We traveled to train together 3 to 4 times a week. I was traveling a little bit over an hour. My other teammate was traveling a little bit over an hour, and we would all meet. I feel like a lot of people that want to be good are having to do that. However, there are those homegrown teams that you're going to get. But if you want to be good and you want to make it to the CrossFit Games, most of the time there is a lot of like recruiting and stuff going on.
It's kind of just yeah, and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. That's kind of just like the structure of things and like the changes that have been implemented in CrossFit. And being an athlete in the space, do you feel like those things have been? Do you think they set athletes up for success, or do you think that it has made it harder? Do you think that it's leveled the field, or do you think it's made it more advantageous for people who have access to traveling or moving or how has that structure, do you think, in your opinion, affected that?
I think them going back to the affiliate cup as far as like a homegrown like gym team has been good for the community, but I don't know if it's necessarily been good for the sport. I think the people that were like the super teams, the year that they did the super teams, you saw a bunch of individuals like going team like Annie did, really. And it was really cool to see those individuals like compete against each other on a team. So I think it's like a double-edged sword almost. Like it's not super awesome for the sport that we're back to the affiliate cup. But it's good for the community. I think it's awesome to have, your community root behind you, go to your semifinal and like be cheering you on the floor. Like that's a really good feeling. And to have that community support is awesome.
Yeah, so absolutely. It's a totally different feel, right? Because it's not just people cheering, it's people cheering. You're like, I know those voices.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to break it up a little bit real quick. I do want to ask kind of a funny question that's been on my mind. If you could compare yourself with any animal, what would it be and why?
Oh my goodness. I feel like I should have got a prequel to this question.
I know,
Um,
right? Bomb.
yeah. I don't know if I could be any animal. I would say that I am like pretty quiet, but also friendly.
Mhm.
But then you put me on the competition floor and I flip a switch.
Oh yeah. It's amazing to watch. I mean, you guys, like whoever's out there watching, you really got to watch Danielle like compete, go watch her reels. It's just, I don't know. It's so inspiring and fun, truthfully. But
So I don't know what animal I guess you would compare that to. Like an animal that can be like stealthy and quiet and friendly, but then one that like attacks. I don't know.
right? I don't know. Maybe
What
we'll
about
have to
you?
come back.
What would you say
Oh,
your sport animal is?
oh man. The unconfident. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh.
oh man, my sport animal. Yeah, I don't really know. Like I think I'm agile and then I'm like kind of not and I'm more strong. I don't know. I feel like I kind of really resonate with the lion more so than anything, just kind of in life, right? It's kind of like
Yeah.
that lion aspect. Like deep down, I'm really soft inside, but on the outside, I will kick your ass. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, you for
But
sure.
I try not to be a mean person, but
Oh, you
I mean, it's interesting though. Like when you start to compete and you're doing your thing, it's like no, like you are going down. Like I'm waiting for the blood in the water. Like it is going to come out, and the moment you show weakness, like it's time to sink your teeth in, right?
mhm.
And like that's the fun part, and it's fun to kind of like experience that shift within yourself. And if you haven't experienced that shift within yourself, within especially CrossFit, I don't necessarily know if you've pushed yourself hard enough. Would you kind of agree with that? That's kind
I
of
would.
like
Yeah.
you kind of like get to see what you're made of, And
Yeah.
it's like, well, what happens when going back to our theme of adversity, like what happens when the shit hits the fan and you have to dig in and root in? And what do you root into? And is that foundation solid or not? And is that going to be something that pushes you to that next level? Whether it's the next level in your career or the next level in the Metcon or the next level in whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. And if you play it safe, then you're going to miss out on a lot of life.
Mhm.
And I guess this is tangenting from our animal question, but the experiences that I think you've had, being on a team and going individual and doing different things, they've written a story for you that you can look back on and say, like, if I didn't do these things and if I played it safe and I just said, like, oh, woe is me, it's just whatever, it's not that important, then what would your story be made up of? You know what I mean? Like, what would have the last 4 years looked like? And through that adversity, you learn not just to work out, right? You are challenging the core function of who you are, and challenging who you want to be, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like you can relate to that because you said, I mean, it's changed you. Everything changes you, right?
Yes. Yes, it has. And I feel like very fortunate to have had the opportunity to do it. If I wouldn't have been so stubborn, I definitely don't think I would be where I'm at today.
Yeah, right. And I mean, like some days it does make it hard, right?
Yes.
Um, what is your favorite movement or a couple favorite movements that you do, right? Whether it's in like weightlifting or gymnastics.
I love any sort of muscle up, either bar or ring.
Yeah.
I love deadlifts. Deadlifts are my favorite. I have really long arms, so the bar doesn't have to go very far off the ground.
And how
Um,
tall?
I'm 5'4".
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
I love
Wingspan
deadlifts. I
6 foot.
love what?
As a wingspan 6 foot.
Probably. Yeah. I love handstand push-ups, deadlifts. So like Diane is one of my favorites. I've really been hammering stuff that I'm bad at though too lately, and that's always fun for me to work on. So handstand walking, ever since I gave birth to Reagan, double unders have been weird for me. I've talked to a couple other CrossFitter mommies, and they have had the same feelings. So
Yeah.
I'm not
I feel like
alone.
that's
Oh,
pretty fun. I mean, oh
yeah.
gosh.
Yes. Yeah. But I love doing stuff that I'm bad at too because I can see the progression with that.
Yeah. Do you have a
Yeah.
coach Are you working with a coach right now?
Yeah. I'm working with Perrin Bear from TTT.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah.
And that's training tank in case anyone doesn't know what TTT is.
Yeah.
And you work remotely with your coach, I assume?
I do. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The first time we met in person was at semifinals this year. She did all of our team training up to that point.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's an additional challenge added in with working remotely with a coach as compared to maybe someone who's in person with you?
I think that, yes, it would be really great for her to have eyes on me, just to be like, oh, hey, you read that wrong. You're supposed to be doing this, or, give me like some cues and things like that. But we've worked out a really good thing together. I'll send her videos if I'm like, hey, this kind of feels a little bit off, or she'll send me a comment on Instagram on one of my stories, like, hey, you should try to put a towel in between your feet when you're doing strict ring muscle ups so you can try to keep your feet together. So, and then we'll do like video chats every once in a while to make sure that we're on the same page. So it's been working really well for us. She's only a 5.5 hour drive. So we are planning on going out there soon.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So not too far. Yeah.
No, it's not too far.
Do you have any favorite male, female CrossFit athletes that you really like look up to or that you follow? Or has it kind of become one of those things where, you're a little bit more on the same playing field, so it's not so much as an inspiration outside of yourself, but maybe with yourself?
I would say the latter for sure. I obviously have looked up to all of these women ever since 2013 when I saw Sam Briggs win, or was it 2013? 2012 when she won the CrossFit Games, I believe. I always looked up to her because she was the woman that I saw standing on the podium. And like, it was when she like had the hammer, like she had won the CrossFit Games or something. She had this hammer and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. She looks so strong. So I've always looked up to her. As far as the field right now, everyone is just so good, right? But someone that I look up to right now is Christy Ermo O'Connell. She is a small athlete, and I feel like we have very similar athletic abilities. Obviously, she's amazing, but she's really good at endurance. She hates wall balls. She hates rowing, which I do too. But I look up to her because I feel like we are very like similar athletically, just a little ways back from her. But she's one of my favorites. Yes.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that's kind of interesting. You bring up the point of, it's really easy to get into the aspect of comparison with social media, right? And I think this is going to just be a topic that comes up a lot because we need to run into this a lot with clients. Maybe you do too. I've even been guilty of it myself, right? And you got to be really careful who you look up to and who you follow and who, just as much as we talked about that inner circle, right, with who you surround yourself with, social media is not different than that. And I think that's something that's often overlooked, right? Is like if someone's toxic for you to follow, you hop on social media and they make you feel terrible about yourself, or you feel like you can't relate to them. And so it's like this unrealistic standard, right? Because similar to like you're saying, you look up to Christy because she's similar to you, right? She gives you kind of this idea of like, I could, use some of the tools that she has or use some of the mentalities or approaches to training that are fitting for like her body and her level of fitness that I want to have for myself. You're not out there following like, some 6'5" athlete and they're like, well, why don't we have the same issues? And that's an important thing that I think people overlook. Right. And so
do you have a comparison game too? Sorry to interrupt. I was thinking about this yesterday. The comparison game that we play when we do get on social media, we do follow Tia or Mal or any of the top women in the sport, you can play this comparison game with yourself and be like, oh, am I doing enough? And sometimes it's best to just unfollow those people so you don't compare yourself or get down on yourself. Actually had to go unfollow a couple people the other day because it was toxic for myself. I was thinking negative thoughts, and I don't want to put myself in that mindset, especially going into next season.
Yeah. And it doesn't change who you are as a person. It's not like you walked up to this person and was like, I don't like you. You're going to walk that way. I'm going to walk this way. We're never going to talk again. Like, that's not a thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like, I don't want to do this. And I know that there is like the mute feature on there in case anyone doesn't know about muting people on Instagram, right? So, like, if you feel like there's that tie, but at the same time, I mean, really, we should be using social media as something that's a positive thing and something that does inspire us and cultivate this energy and not a stressor and not a level of anxiety, and especially as an athlete, right? And a lot of times people look at, those bigger athletes and say, like, I'm never going to be there, rather than looking at them and respecting them without questioning the value of your own self and without questioning the value of your own journey.
That's a great way to put it.
Lost on them, right? And so that kind of brings another question of like, what are goals versus values, right? Do you live a goal-oriented life, or do you live a process-oriented life, or do you take that type of different approach to your training? And neither necessarily, like, we're not going to put it in all or nothings, right? Like good or bad or whatever. But one of those things is that when we focus on the goal alone, we focus on like the top of the mountain, the best athlete, we often lose the joy in the journey.
Yeah.
And someone like yourself, you can tell that you're a very values-based person, because regardless of adversity, regardless of someone saying like, no, you can't be on the team, gonna overlook this, hey, I failed my drug test, there goes your entire season, good luck with your life, with whatever kind of happens in there, that doesn't change who you are as a person, that doesn't change who you are as an athlete, that doesn't change your values. And when we talk about our whys are rooted in our values. Our why is our motive behind our motivation, right? And so what do you think are some of your values, just kind of as an athlete or as a woman, or that you live by in your own life?
Absolutely. So my family is the thing that comes first. Spending quality time with them, making sure I'm there for Reagan whenever she needs something, and making sure that she is thriving and growing and doing, in the right school. We're working on getting her in gymnastics, all of those things. So I want to do my job as her mom to make sure that she can become an amazing human and do whatever she wants to do. And then, my husband, he is so important to me and just so good to me, really. So supportive in anything that I want to do. And those are my whys. And, my extended family and stuff too. But I also want to be a good person. I want people throughout the community to know that I want them to succeed, and that, just because you are my competitor doesn't mean that I can't celebrate like your wins with you and, how well you did in that workout, even if you did beat me. Like, good for you. Like, that was an awesome lift. Like, that was an awesome workout. Like, I want people to, think that I'm a good person, and I want to be a good person, and, just kind of shed light in the community in that way, and just be positive. I think that sometimes can get very lost. Like you said, especially with like social media and opportunities, and, oh, like, she got what I want. Like, why can't I have that? And I feel like that's really important, just to like celebrate each other's wins, whenever people do get these awesome opportunities, and good things will come your way if you're a good person.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And I think sometimes too, you said she got that, she's got that. I want that, but she's got that. You know what I mean? Like, screw her. Sometimes people say that, right? And you're just like, no, that's not no, this isn't why I'm putting this up. This isn't why it's there. Right. And I think that sometimes there's this barrier that we overlook to understanding that we could also just reach out to that person and say, how did you get where you got? How do you do what you do? You know what I mean? And that's kind of like one of the fun parts about being able to sit here and talk to you and really get a real life, reminder of just kind of that you're a person, right? And that it's not just pictures on social media. And so digging into understanding how have you gotten where you've gotten? We talked a little bit about training. We've talked about your history as an athlete in the sport. Let's talk about so how many days a week do you train and how long do you train for?
I train 6 days a week, 1 day completely off. My rest days are typically on Thursdays, which will typically be like a swim, something that is not super impactful. And then during the week, I'll train 2-a-days. Most of my sessions are about 2 hours each. That's right now. Once we kind of get into the thick of things, the training sessions do start going to 3 hours. And then, sometimes I'll split them up into, instead of 2-a-days, doing 3 sessions during the day. That way I can kind of like recover and give my all into the next piece.
Absolutely. And I think that's something a lot of people don't see, right? Is they just look at it and they're like, oh yeah, she's really good at muscle ups. Or, oh yeah, she competed at the MAC. What they don't see is that you're working out 3 times a day.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So nutrition's a big piece of that. Sleep is a big piece of that. Stress, water intake, right? The basics. You being a nutrition coach, I'm a nutrition coach. Like we do it ourselves. Like what is that? What does your nutrition look like in the off season? What does that look like during season? And how do you prioritize eating to fuel your performance and recovery?
Absolutely. So for during the off season, I really just try to eat mindfully. Sometimes that gets really tough because it's hard for me to get enough protein in just naturally. I'll still weigh my food, my protein, just to make sure that I am getting enough. And then when we go into the season, I'm tracking macros like very diligently. And then, like I said, when volume kind of ramps up a little bit with training, I'll make sure to add more calories in, but always eating like not a huge breakfast, but oats in the morning with eggs and egg whites, make sure I'm getting enough protein. Going into the gym, I like to have the Swolverine pre-workout. It's one of my favorites. During my session too, I found that it's like super important, especially for me. I float around like 137 pounds, which is smaller for CrossFit athletes. Women's weight is only going up on average. So I've been drinking a protein shake and carbs during my workout to help fuel my muscles. That way I'm not digging myself into a deeper deficit. And I feel like that's been super helpful when it's come to my recovery and strength building right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people often overlook the impact of, having pre, intra, and post, whether it's from food or supplements, right? And I think you might know, but we do have an intra workout now in formulation. We put in this
coming out. I'm so excited to try it.
Yeah, so that's going to be really good to also kind of incorporate in addition to, or in conjunction with your carbs and your protein, right? Because some people are like, I don't want anything in my stomach. I'm not eating before I work out. I can't have food anywhere in my body. And like, truthfully, from a nutrition coaching standpoint, really challenging that mentality. And I think that you might be able to relate with this, challenging that mentality. Like, where did I get that and why? Did I puke once? Did I poop my pants once? Did I, do handstand push-ups and felt like I was going to barf my protein? Like, I don't know. I don't know why people do that, right? But we have these physiological responses that connect to our mental and our habits and what happens, and challenging that so that you can have those really important nutrients pre, inter, and post is very important, but also understanding why you're doing what you're doing and why do you need protein? Why do you prioritize it? Why do you prioritize carbohydrates? And so that's kind of something that is a thing that I face a lot with nutrition coaching. What are some of the things or problems that you face with clients that they deal with?
Getting people to eat breakfast.
Okay.
Everybody wants to do like intermittent fasting because it worked for their friend, or even keto too. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, my friend lost all this weight on keto. I'm like, well, did they have 20 pounds to lose, or did they have 100 pounds to lose? Like, everybody's very different, and what is going to work for them is going to work for them specifically. But I feel like the breakfast is one of the hardest challenges that I have to deal with people. Even for me too, I never ate breakfast before. And when I started CrossFit, I would go into the gym and I wouldn't eat until like 1 o'clock. And I would be dizzy during my sets, low energy and all that stuff. And I started off with 1 egg, and I tell my clients, just start off with 1 egg. That's it. And then we can add to that. So that worked for me, and it's been working for people. But yeah, I feel like that's been one of the biggest challenges. What about you?
The breakfast is a big one. Remembering to eat in general and prioritizing it. I mean, I struggle with this one. I'm a very busy person. And sometimes if I don't prepare, I prepare to fail. You know what I mean? Like if you prepare ahead of time, then you prepare to succeed. And that kind of simple concept, and I tell that to myself a lot to kind of call myself out of my own shit, basically. And it's like, you're preparing to fail. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And then it's like, yes, you actually are. And sometimes we need that accountability and that kind of in your face mentality of that, and that's where I use dried fruit a lot for a carbohydrate source, just because it's when I forget, that's what I do. And so do you have a favorite pre-workout snack or a meal that you eat ahead of time?
So in the morning, I'll make sure to have my breakfast, and then I'll go straight to the gym after I drop off Reagan. But I'll have a cup of oats and then a protein shake as my breakfast before I go into the gym. But then in the afternoon, when I really need those carbs, I like dried mango. That's my favorite, or Mott's fruit snacks. Specifically Mott's. I don't like any of the other ones. I don't know. The texture of Mott's is just the best.
I like that. Yeah. And I think a lot of times people overcomplicate it, and it's like, nope, it's just applesauce. If I need more, I just put anotanother cup.
Yeah. Baby food too. Baby food, they're so easy.
Yeah. And that's another thing I run into a lot is people who are afraid of carbs, right? Or people who, don't understand that carbohydrates are needed for muscle building and muscle repairing, right? Even though protein is, you also need that glycogen in there as that fuel source. So that's a really common one. About how much water do you drink? I mean, that's just my own personal curiosity, but training at that much higher level, water is also another thing that people really grossly underestimate the impact of, whether they're trying to lose weight or lose body fat, or they're trying to be the best athlete as possible. So what does your water intake look like?
I try to drink about 100 ounces a day. That's my goal. Nice. I typically will get there. But realistically, you want to drink about you want to drink your body weight in ounces, typically. But about 100 ounces will do it, depending on how hot it is. We are in North Carolina, and it does get very humid and very, very hot. And, on those days, I'm doubling down on water. So,
yeah, I feel that. Yeah. Well, you must be doing something really well. I mean, I've seen the striations in your shoulders. You're looking jacked, but your hand is jacked nails, so can you flex for us? Can we flex for this? Yeah.
It's a celebrating tank that's just got a nice spot.
I love it. That's awesome. As far as like, what are some of your go-to dinners? Let's just kind of stay on the food thing for a little bit.
Yeah,
What are some of your go-to dinners or your favorite snacks outside of
so, for dinners, my husband and I have like tried really, really hard to do dinners together.
Mhm.
From him transitioning to like a single man to like family. And then now that I've been home in the evenings, like we try to do Monday as pasta night, Tuesdays, Taco Tuesdays. Wednesdays, we've been doing like typically like a shrimp dish. And then Thursdays and Fridays is kind of like a free for all in what we have. But we'll do like burgers or tater tots in the air fryer, one of my favorites. So yeah, we try to like go with a theme.
I like it. It kind of keeps your week organized, right? So then you can kind of get in the habit. And then, that's where you start to add in variability, right? So if you're doing tacos every Tuesday, you can do 1 week shrimp, 1 week chicken, 1 week pork. Like it doesn't have to be some crazy complicated thing, right? Do you put fruit on your tacos?
Mango salsa? Yes.
Okay, let's go. I had that conversation with someone the other day. It's like, yeah, like I'm gonna want you to put pineapple or mango or some chimichurri sauce or like, and they're like, no, I'm not putting fruit. They push back so hard, and I was like, you can't try it until you've done it. I mean, honestly. Do you have refeed days, or do you pretty much are you in a caloric surplus? Are you kind of like at maintenance all the time? What does that look like?
I'm in a caloric surplus. Try to be all the time because I need to gain weight and muscle right now. So it's really hard to eat a ton, especially when you're doing 2-a-days because you don't want to go in on like a super full stomach. And typically when you are trying to gain weight, you try to eat as much as you can every single time you eat. So I go to bed very, very full. To say the least.
Yeah. Right. And like, I think that's something overlooked as well, right? You got to eat to gain and sometimes even eat to lose. Right. Do you find something I've ran into with athletes is that you get this feeling of heaviness in your gymnastics, or they feel like fluffy, you know what I mean? They're like, I can't keep doing this because I'm going to pull the bar down. Like I'm not moving with the bar. I'm just not moving. And how do you kind of wrap your head around that? I mean, a lot of people will say, well, I want to get leaner. I want to have more body fat loss and definition. I want to feel lighter during my gymnastics, but they have a competition coming up in 5 weeks, right? So it's obviously not the time to do a cut. But there is the mental aspect of gaining weight and gaining muscle and being in that surplus and eating and going to bed full. How do you feel like you've combated that either with yourself, right? With kind of self-image and self-talk, or, with clients if maybe that's not something you've experienced personally?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I went through it this season. In the lead up to semifinals, I felt like a little fluffy. So I tried to experiment with a little cut, and I was dizzy during my training. The most important thing to me is my performance. So I ramped it back up and, just kind of did a little bit more ab work to maybe feel like a little bit tighter in my midsection. But I feel like that's how I mean, everybody deals with body image issues, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking back on my body, like during semifinals, I don't know if you know this, but I had poison ivy everywhere.
Gosh, I forgot about that.
So I had to wear a t-shirt or shirt the entire time, no shorts at all. Like I had the biggest rash on my legs. I was like, there's no way anybody wants to see these legs right now. It was so bad. And I actually gave it
the way it looks. It's how you feel. I mean, that couldn't have felt good.
Oh, it did not feel good at all. I was putting calamine lotion like on my body everywhere, like in between. Yes, I should have taken a calamine bath. In between every single event, and like I would go to the bathroom and the I guess my skin was like coming off like with my pants when I would like go to pull them down. It was terrible. So my body was like inflamed. So regardless, like I still didn't feel good like at semifinals because I was inflamed from this poison ivy.
Yeah.
But looking back, I really wasn't that bad. I guess.
The queen of adversity, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh man.
Danielle Dunlap.
Everybody deals with something.
They do though, and that's like something that's overlooked, right? And it's like kind of that thing where share your story. You might inspire someone, and if anything, you can kind of just laugh at what happened. I mean, right?
Mhm.
There's nothing you can do about it, you know.
Yeah.
And then I'm over here like, "Where's your apparel?" And you're like, "I can't wear shorts." So
I appreciate everything you gave me though.
I know, right?
Oh,
Like you can't wear crop tops.
yeah.
Are you a hard gainer naturally?
Yes. Very
Yeah.
hard game. Yeah.
So you've had to work pretty dang hard then for your muscle.
Really hard.
Yeah.
I like I said, I'm doing a lot of the things that I'm bad at. And it's made me love those things even more. But done a lot of strict work, a lot of isolated movements to get my legs bigger, booty, all of that stuff just to try to get stronger. But yeah, naturally I'm small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Small
Yes.
L. Small.
I'm small.
Do you have like, so you've experienced this journey firsthand. You might have some clients like it. I've had clients like it. What are some of your pieces of advice for hard gainers or for people trying to maintain weight who have very busy or active lifestyles? Right, because that can contributes as well. Do you recommend like calorie hacks, juices, sauces? What does that kind of look like, or at least from your perspective?
Yes. Well, just like you said, if you're a hard gainer like me, the intra workout, like carbohydrate and protein is really important as far as like the glucose storage and just like refilling those glucose stores. Making sure that you're fueling your body properly, and eating really to fullness every single time that you can. Um, trying to stay away from a ton of voluminous carbs like broccoli and cauliflower. Like you don't want to eat a ton of that stuff, and you will have to. So try to stick with more dense carbohydrates like rice, the clean carbs that Swolverine has. Those are really good with the sweet potatoes. Those are amazing. And yeah, like you said, with the sauces and stuff too, like their ketchup has a lot of sugar in it, but it is going to be good for your performance. So just throw it on there.
Absolutely. And then like kind of balancing those throughout the day, right? I mean, do you have kind of if you're a hard gainer, you're eating meals. I mean, what does a typical meal or snack look like calorically for you? I mean, are we looking at like the 300 to 600 range? Are we looking at like the 800 range? Do you eat more often to adjust with your stomach? Or is that something that because of your time schedule and your constraints as far as like your responsibilities with being a mom and having to make dinner and things like that, do you do like bigger meals instead? Like what is that kind of broken up?
I've actually started playing with that a little bit. I set reminders on my phone to have a snack every 2 hours. So that's been like really beneficial for me. Like go grab a piece of fruit, go grab a serving of mango, like that sort of thing. So that's the reminders on my phone have been really beneficial with me trying to remember to eat, because I do, like when I'm working, I get wrapped up on my computer and like 5 hours goes by and I'm like, shit, I'm starving. I need to eat right now. So
Yeah, that makes sense. And finding your individual flow with it's really important too, right? And that's where like a coach can come in and aligning yourself with a coach that has like your values and how like you feel like you can relate to and feel like they're going to carry you and provide you with the knowledge that you need to be successful in what you want to achieve. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most fun parts about coaching. I know you can relate to that, where it's like, you kind of like get to blow people's minds, right? You get to blow out stigmas and stereotypes and get to show them that this amount of like self-worth and self-image and self-esteem that you can help instill in them, all from the basis of what you eat on a daily basis and how you take care of yourself, is so empowering. Like, it's one of the best things.
Yes,
So
I love seeing like a change in stuff too that starts the change in stuff too that like starts with people. Like you see them like being so vulnerable with you, and you're able to like implement those small daily habits, and then 3, 6 months, maybe even 12 months goes by, and like look at where we started and look at where we are now. It's like one of the coolest things to see that change happen in people.
Yeah. And oftentimes that's where people push back the most, right? Or they feel these things changing and they're out of their comfort zone. And some people sometimes aren't ready for that change, right? And as a coach, that's hard because you're just like, I know you have it in you. I see the potential. Like, you just got to push through this barrier, push through this like mental, emotional thing that's like sucking you down and is like, no, come back.
It also goes back to like, what's your why? Why did you hire me? Like, why do you want this?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to have like aesthetic performance goals, but then there's also kind of like that emotional connector, right? So yeah, it's interesting. Tell me a little bit about your daily supplement routine with Swolverine. What does that look like from when you wake up to when you go to sleep?
Yeah. So I'll eat my breakfast in the morning. After that, I'll make my green shake, and then take all my vitamins. I love all of Swolverine's vitamins. I recommend them to all of my people. After that, like I've got my pre-workout, which I'll switch it up between like my morning and my PM session. So I'll either have like beta alanine, the citrulline malate, and then glutamine in like some Gatorade or something, because they are unflavored. And then in the evening, I'll typically do like the pre-workout, just to have both. And like I said, during my training sessions, I'll do the protein and the carb supplement. And then during my PM session, I'll make sure that I'm drinking that during as well.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. The vitamins that you take, I'm pretty sure you take like krill oil, turmeric, probiotics. I'm trying to think about it.
B, D, and I think you got them all.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And then, the nice part too about, you mentioned, kind of mixing up the flavors is with the unflavors is like, it doesn't really get boring, right? So then you can mix it with anything. And then also too, a training late in the day, I would assume it's nice, and I do this as well. It's nice to not have like a stimulant pre-workout, right? Where something is going to keep you up with a bunch of caffeine and sugar, or you're going to have that crash, or like you're not going to be able to go home and go to sleep. So that's like also a nice thing too, as a CrossFitter, like your heart rate's already so high. You don't need it to go, higher with stimulants, right? So kind of cool thing there. But let's, Danielle, this has been amazing. It's been some really, really nice conversation, and to get to know you as an athlete and a human and as a woman. We choose to work with you because of a lot of things you talked about. You are a good person, both in and out of the gym. You're not just a great athlete. You are just a great human. And so we value you. We hope our listeners out there have been able to be inspired. Make sure to go follow Danielle on Instagram. So I'm going to pop that up here again. Cheer her on into the next season of life and season of training. And I guess what I want to end on is, what are you looking forward to most about the season coming up ahead?
It's really being able to showcase what I've been working on. I don't feel like I was able to showcase that this past year with our season ending the way that it did. So I'm really excited to just showcase the athlete that I've become working with my new coach, and all of the stuff that I've been working on that I'm bad at. Like I'm better. So I'm ready for next season.
We're very excited for it too. Do you have any upcoming competitions that we can also cheer you on at? Will you be doing like Whatappalooza or?
I am competing at the Crash Crucible in South Carolina. JR is the owner of the gym. He's actually been on the Savon podcast with Taylor and all that stuff, like reviewing semifinals in the games and stuff. His competition is legit. And there are very good athletes there. So I'm super excited to compete there for my 3rd year. I'm not sure that I will be doing Whatappalooza this year. I spent a lot of money last year doing Whatappalooza. And I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze financially. So I think I'm going to be doing Fittest of the Coast in February.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. And that will be right before the 2023 CrossFit Games season. And oh, yeah. It's going to be so good. Well, thank you again. Thank you to our viewers. Make sure to give Danielle a follow. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, make sure to subscribe to our channel so that you can get notifications on when we go live in our episodes. We're also now on Spotify. So if you're looking just for that audio that you can pop in your earbuds and carry on with the rest of your day, listen to our voices. We'd love for you to give us a subscribe there. So Danielle, we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks, Alex.
You bet.
Bye.